Robby, what's on your radar today?
Well, at the end of last year, Dr. Anthony Fauci finally retired from active government service. He had served as the head of the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases since 1984. His long tenure made him the highest paid employee in the federal government. Fauci has vowed that his retirement from official government service would not be a retirement from public life entirely. He has promised to remain an active spokesperson for his public health message. After all, he is clearly someone who enjoys giving interviews. To that end, Dr. Fauci is the subject of a new documentary series by PBS, which will be released today. It's called American Masters, Dr. Tony Fauci. Now, the documentary filmmakers actually began following Fauci around with their cameras 2 years ago, in January of 2021. As such, they have footage of Fauci from much earlier in the pandemic. Some of those clips were released ahead of the full film and went viral on social media the other day. Let's watch and see if you can guess why. In this clip, Fauci can be seen going door to door with D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser in Anacostia, a predominantly black and poorer neighborhood of Washington, D.C., to encourage unvaccinated residents to get the shot this is the spring or summer of 2021. Let's watch.
Do you think it hurts, or what is?
No, it does other things to me. I just pass out.
How old are you? I'm older than you, so don't feel badly. Don't feel bad. I'm 80.
Me too.
Oh, good.
Me too. I'm 82.
That's one of the reasons why you might want to reconsider.
What I find is people aren't really opposed.
Yeah, I know.
But they do need a
They need a little push.
A push and a drag.
Yeah.
Later in the clip, Fauci laments that Republican-controlled states are less willing to force pandemic control measures on their citizens.
What are we going to do about those other states?
Oh, my God. They're going to keep the outbreak smoldering in the country. It's so crazy. I mean, they're not doing it because they say they don't want to do it. They're Republicans. They don't like to be told what to do.
Right.
And we got to break that, unpack that.
But what I really want to focus on is this.
How you guys doing with vaccine?
I haven't gotten it yet. I'm waiting for them to be able to.
Oh, you should get it first. Okay, that way you won't give it to them.
Oh, I thought I would give it to them if I get it.
No, not at all. In fact, we got to get you vaccinated so that if you were to get infected, you could pass it on to them. So you're actually protecting your family by getting vaccinated.
Well, I heard that it doesn't cure it and it doesn't stop you from getting it.
No.
So
on the very, very, very rare chance that you do get it, even if you're vaccinated, you don't even feel sick. It's like you don't even know you got infected. It's very, very good at protecting you.
In that clip, Fauci and Bowser correct a woman who notes that the vaccine doesn't really stop you from getting COVID. Now, this video was filmed in the spring or summer of 2021 at a time when there were, in fact, many fewer breakthrough cases than there have been as of today. In the long run, though, that woman was right, and Fauci was wrong. The vaccine does not offer substantial protection against contracting COVID-19. Let's keep watching.
So I'm not going to be lining up taking a shot or a vaccination for something that wasn't clear in the first place. And then you all create a shot in miraculous time. It takes years to create vaccination.
Well, it used to take years.
Okay, it used to.
You know how many years were invested in this approach? About 20 years of science to get us to be able to do it.
20 years is not enough. And 9 months is definitely not enough for nobody to be taking no vaccination that you all came up with.
The only reason I'm talking to you right now, as close as we are, is that I've been vaccinated.
Right.
But if it allows thousands of people like you don't get vaccinated, you're going to let this virus continue to percolate in this country and in this world.
Something like the common flu then, right?
Again, at the time the video was recorded, COVID was killing far more people than the flu. But how has the claim made by Mayor Bowser held up? She said she was only comfortable getting so close to the man because she was vaccinated, implicitly suggesting that she believed the vaccine was protecting her from contracting COVID. And she said that mass vaccination was needed to beat back cases. Now, I want to be very clear that the vaccines are tremendously important for at-risk Americans, including and especially the elderly, who are disproportionately likely to become very sick if they contract COVID, particularly the first time. And public officials are welcome to opine to everyday Americans that they'd like them to consider vaccination. But so many of the claims made by Bowser and by Fauci in that video just do not stand up to scrutiny anymore. In fact, if one is being remotely consistent or honest, some of the views expressed or implied there by Fauci and Bowser constitute outdated misinformation. The best info we have about COVID right now is that vaccines offer some protection against infection, perhaps for a time, and natural immunity, immunity acquired from infection, is about as protective against severe disease as a shot of the vaccine. In the light of day, in 2023, there are some relevant questions if you really want to persuade someone to get vaccinated. Have you previously had COVID? Which strain? How old are you? Do you have a health condition? Are you in an at-risk category? But at the time this footage was taken, policymakers were still laboring under the assumption that mass vaccination was necessary from a public health perspective to prevent the spread of the disease. Fauci thought he needed to get a high percentage of the population vaccinated in order to achieve herd immunity. Remember that? This was a belief that turned out to be wrong. So is anyone going to add a misinfo label to this documentary that's coming out years later? Are government health scientists going to call for it to be banned from social media? No? Why not? Because that's how the federal government handled COVID misinformation in the past. Internal emails between the CDC and Twitter, Facebook, and other giant social media companies have shown that federal bureaucrats constantly lobbied content moderators to censor speech that they thought contained errors about COVID. When you get it wrong, they shut you up. When Fauci gets it wrong, they make him a movie star. So these videos rubbed a lot of people the wrong way on social media, and I understand why. I'm not trying to validate every crazy thing a random person says about COVID, but it's striking to me listening to the experts, the government figures, Fauci and Mayor Bowser, talk there about what they thought at the time. It's not true anymore. It's outdated. Yeah, and I do think it's important to emphasize that, especially in the summer of 2021, people, I think, were genuinely more hopeful. And there was evidence that indicated that the first round of vaccines were more effective against the strain that was circulating at the time, against transmission. So some of the comments now, which really look dated about, I'm only standing next to you because I've been vaccinated, seemed like, from a scientific perspective, it was more true at that time. Now, we also weren't aware of, although I think I take your point, that some people were asking questions that ended up being validated, about whether or not prior infection offers you a level of protection perhaps as high or close to as high as vaccination, which of course has been borne out. And there was a lot of negativity and a lot of pushback against people who were just interrogating that in the first place. Including from Fauci. But I don't know, I think there was some aspect of the criticism which is very warranted, where there was a preachy dogmatism about what was the right course of action when there was still a lot of uncertainty, that there has been a slowness to correct the record, that this is not going to be labeled misinformation, although I'd be interested to see if they qualify any of this in the context of the documentary outside of the raw footage. Yeah, I'm waiting to see that too. And I would agree with you that absolutely should happen. But there's another part of the critique that I think is facts were different at a different time in the pandemic, and it's worth disaggregating those, I think, because not every aspect of that was in bad faith. Sure, totally. But I think it shows you why attempts to limit discussion were so wrong-headed, because the best guesses of smart people have radically changed. And some people were questioning it all along, and they were made to sound crazy. And particularly the two things you just mentioned, the natural immunity and the not being particularly protective against just cases, those were things some people were saying all along that ended up being totally validated. So you can't just say, people who in the mainstream media, other health scientists want to say, well, we got to really deter misinformation. We got to, what does Dr. Fauci think? What does the CDC think? Let's keep everybody on that track. Why that just ended up being a really flawed approach. Yeah, I mean, I think one other thing I noticed is in that clip, there was a weird underemphasis of what the COVID vaccine really does do effectively and continues to do effectively, which is to keep people out of the hospital, including not just the emphasis on older people, but regular, like the healthy, young, otherwise not at risk people. I don't want us to lose track of the fact that in the early days, there were all types of folks that were being hospitalized and even dying from COVID who had not been exposed to the virus before and who had not been vaccinated. And obviously, there's many more people who have been exposed. But the question now is, how long really does your exposure to COVID protect you
and how long does the vaccine ultimately protect you? And unfortunately, I think we're not going to really know how long that kind of protection lasts until it's too late and people start getting hospitalized again. So I do wish, in the context of all of the warnings they were issuing in that clip, they had actually emphasized more that even if you get COVID, you're still being protected from having the worst effects of COVID.
And look, having Mayor Bowser, Fauci knock on your front door and try to persuade you to get vaccinated is not the greatest affront to human liberty ever. They have the right to do it, fine. But, let's just keep in mind all the policies that mandated vaccines that were in place that continue to be in place in some contexts. I know there are still universities, some of the public universities, that are going to require the bivalent shot for you to get back on campus in the fall. And we didn't let that tennis player, Novak Djokovic, play in the Miami Open because he's not vaccinated, can't come to the country. This is not something Canada or any of our European countries do. It's just us out here still mandating this on our lonesome COVID totalitarianism that is not scientifically defensible.
Yeah.
And that's very frustrating to me still.
Absolutely.
We'll have more Rising after this.